Why do Christians seem to love rich people? Prosperity gospel. This is less about Christianity and more about the cultural make-up of the Christian community. They are often westernized and have inherited wealth. This means they like rich people because they are rich people. What are we basing this question on? You guys realize that Christianity is shrinking in the West, but growing in other much poorer places. It's actually growing overall. To say this is Christians is generalizing a worldwide religion. Fake Christians are what you hear about. True Christians don't cause a ruckus or judge other people. They help make sure you have what you need to keep going, be it food, shoes, or a roof. Televangelists and the churches that had political signage during the election, however, are just in it for money. Jesus is a way for them to not feel guilty about being shitty to other people. I pray to Jesus, so I'm a good person. They use religion as a weapon against people they disagree with. They hide behind Jesus for a moral high ground they never succeed to find, and when they aren't in control of other people they lash out with vitriol. Christians would reference the next part of that passage. But with God, anything is possible. I'm an atheist BTW, but to disagree with something you should know the full context and counter-arguments. But yes, you are supposed to give to the needy, but just being rich doesn't negate someone from going to heaven. The Bible is filled with rich people, both in the New and Old Testament, who worshipped God and followed Him faithfully. Many of the key followers of Christ in the New Testament were wealthy and influential in their own cities, and some were even rulers of nations. Jesus' primary objection to the rich people mentioned in the Gospels was that the Jews of the time had begun to link wealth with God's favor in a sort of "I am rich because God likes me more than you way." Many of his ministries were about disproving this belief, not about dunking on all rich people. Didn't Christ himself really not like them to go so far as to say they'd need to pass a camel hair through the eye of a needle to get to heaven, which would be nearly impossible? The very next thing Jesus says is, with men this is impossible, but with God all things are possible. Always look at the context of the Bible verse you are quoting. Yeah, you're definitely generalizing. It's just human nature. People are drawn to people with money. Why do Redditors seem to generalize about Christians? America is not a Christian country, although they think they are. This post doesn't really make any sense. Didn't Christ himself really not like them to go so far as to say they'd need to pass a camel through the eye of a needle to get to heaven? Christ didn't really not like anybody. His point with the camel needle was that when you have a lot, it's harder to give that all up than it is when you're pretty much destitute anyhow. Mostly because they are not really Christians. They are Philistines that claim they are Christians. The prosperity gospel isn't anything Jesus would have recognized, but it allows them to pursue boundless wealth with a clear conscience and no real concern for others. I think it's not just Christianity. In Hinduism there is a god, Lakshmi, to symbolize wealth. Wealth is often considered a virtue. It means you have the means to help others rather than receive help. Also, you've conflated wealth with greed. I don't believe Christians view building wealth as the same as Redditors believing that earning is hoarding wealth. No. Jesus loved rich people just like he loved poor people. Actually, Jesus had some rich patrons and his grave was donated by a rich man. It gets really interesting when we understand that God made many of his followers very, very rich, including Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Job, David, Solomon, etc. In reality, hating people because they have more money than you is due to envy and jealousy, which are sins. Remember when Joel Osteen refused to open his Lakewood church for victims of Hurricane Harvey? Yeah, that's because his church was a tax shelter, not a shelter for people. They are only Christians who love money if you define them that way. See them as people, and y'all see them the way we're supposed to. Christ's quote was, "It is easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter heaven." Contextually, he was indicating that many rich people would continue to love their money more than the only means into heaven, salvation by the Christ, which logically prevents their entry. As for why Christians seem to love rich people, I suspect you're experiencing confirmation bias. More properly, it may be that you're only seeing Christians who love rich people. That doesn't speak for the entirety of Christianity. You won't find consensus on this. Biblically, the Bible has no prohibition against having wealth, and in fact even gets frequently misquoted with the love of money is the root of all evil line, when it actually said the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. It's difficult to argue a position when its premise isn't accurate. I would say political Christians specifically love rich people. The way in which a particular brand sect of American Christianity has become little more than a platform for political engagement, forget the religion, is nearly heretical to use a word with meaning inside the religious world. If you ask me, and I am an atheist, Jesus would be driving this brand of Christians out of the temple where he here today in the form for which and for the reasons which he's become worshipped. The Trump Christianity intersection parasitic relationship is just the kind of thing that would cause the Old Testament God to flood the earth and send the very unchristian MAG ats packing. 1. The word love in your title is really hard to respond to, because Christians are supposed to love everybody, whether sinner or not. 2. If you're referring to policy that works to counteract rich people, that's a bit more complicated, but it feels like theft to a lot of people to merely take from the rich and give to the poor. Remember that Jesus told us if we wanted to be perfect, we'd sell all that we have and give to the poor, not find a nearby rich guy and give his stuff to them. I love all people, including rich people. I'm a Jew and can definitively say it's not just Christians,